So this is your curve. And this is also your curve. They're giving us two curves that we're going to revolve around this axis. Y equals -1. These two curves, since it doesn't give me like a lower bound and upper bound, these two curves should form or should have two intersection points, which they do. Do you guys remember? I mean, you guys should recognize this curve. We can write it differently to make them look more familiar. Okay, it's a parabolic curve. It's a parabola. Because x squared is negative, we know it goes downwards. Because there's a +3, we know it's shifted up. Here's a regular parabolic curve. This is our mother function. Whoa. The mother function just goes like this, right? Okay, but it's going to flip upside down because of that negative, and we're going to shift up to 3 because of that 3, that +3. So here's our parabolic curve. And then we have another curve at x equals -1. And so at -1, we're going to put, I'm sorry, not x equals, y equals -1. This is y equals -1. So right here, we're at -1. Okay, so this is our curve. Here's our intersection points. Those are going to be our lower and our upper bounds. Now, where are we rotating? We're rotating around this axis. This is our rotation, our rotating axis. Okay, that makes this problem a little more simple because it's easier to find the radius of the circles that are going to be formed. So when we rotate this, guys, it's going to look something like this. I don't know. My drawings are kind of Can you guys see it? No? Yes? Like that's how it's going to rotate. And so you see our radius is going to be this. Of every circle, it's going to be the distance from this curve to this curve. That's what our radius is going to be. So let's start with our area function, okay? We're doing cross sections, right? So our area function is going to be a circle. So we have a of x. How do I know it's a function of x? I know it's a function of x because my distance is vertical. It's determined by our x values. We choose x values, and that's going to tell us what our radius is going to be. So let's first just write the formula for the area of a circle. It's pi r squared, but I don't want r. I want it to be a function of x. I want r to be written as x, and so let's rewrite that. We know that r is the distance between this and this. It's the distance between those two curves. So how do we find a distance between any two numbers? We subtract. And so if we want to find this distance, what we're going to do is we're going to take the top curve, subtract the bottom curve. So we have 3 minus x squared. That's the top curve. And then we're going to subtract the bottom curve, which is -1. That's going to give us the distance right there. And that's going to be our radius. And so let's rewrite our radius to be 3 minus x squared plus 1. Right? It's minus -1. And actually, I can still rewrite that with a 4 instead of a 3. So I have pi times 4 minus x squared. So that is our area function. Now, that will find the area of any one circle if we plug the x value in for it. Like this circle right here. If I want to find the area of this one circle right here, I have to plug in the x value right there. And I could say, let's say that x equals 2. Now, if I take that 2 and I plug it into this, I can find the area of that circle right there. But that's only one circle. That's not going to give us a volume. If we want to find a volume, we have to find the area of every single circle and add them all together. And that's when calculus comes in. So what we're going to do is we're going to use an integral for our area function. And we're going to integrate with respect to x. What is our lower and our upper bound? In order to find our lower and upper bound, we have to see where we begin and where we end. Okay, those are the x values where you begin and where you end. And so how would you do that? Well, there's two ways to do that. You can use a calculator, and all you have to do with the calculator is you have to graph the two curves, which is this curve. Well, I guess I'll circle these. This curve and this curve. You have to see where they intersect. You can use your calculator. You used to use there's a tool called intersection, and you can find the intersection points using a calculator, or we can just use algebra. I'm pretty sure we can just use algebra with this one. It doesn't look too complicated. 3 minus x squared equals -1. Subtract 3. Negative x squared equals -4. Multiply both sides by -1, and now I have x squared equals 4, so x equals positive or -2. That's because when you square root inside of an equation, you got to have positive or negative. And plus, it just kind of makes sense. If you have something and you're squaring it and you're getting 4, well, we can use positive 2 or we can use negative 2. So that's our lower and our upper bound. So I'm going to put negative 2 here and positive 2 right there. Now let's plug in our area function. Now this is kind of like the formula. You see our area function right here has a scalar out in front of it. And so we're going to put pi out in front. We're just going to take him out right away. He's not a variable. He's a constant. I'm not going to write it with the squared right here. I'm going to do that squared, because if I do that squared, then I get a simple polynomial function. And so when I do that squared, you cannot do this. You cannot just distribute it. That is against the algebra laws. What that squared means is you're taking 2 4 minus x squareds and you're multiplying those together. So the first one is 4 times 4, that's 16. And then we have 4 times negative x squared, which is negative 4x squared. And then we have negative x squared times 4, which is also negative 4x squared. So we have negative 8x squared. And then finally we have negative x squared times negative x squared, which is positive x to the 4th, dx. Now we have to just do calculus. We have to integrate this, plug in our 2's, and we get our volume of this shape. Or you can just throw this in your calculator. But these problems right here that they give you in this section are made so that you can not have to use a calculator. So do it first by yourself, and then use a calculator to check your work. Now to integrate this, the first thing you would get is, I'm going to put that pi out in front. We have 16x minus, that'll be 8 over 3 x to the 3rd power. And then we have 1 over 5 x to the 5th. And I'm going to plug in negative 2 and 2. All right, so when I plug in 2, let's see what we get. Let's see if we can do this a little in our head. If I plug in 2, oops, I forgot the x and the 16. I'm going to get 32. Sorry, 32. And then if I plug in 2, the other one, that's going to be 8, because 2 raised to the 3rd power is 8. And then I get 64 up top, and that's going to be over 3. And then I have plus, I have 1/5 times whatever 2 to the 5th is. And 2 to the 5th is 32. So I'm going to put 32 over 5. And then minus, I'm going to put brackets now. Minus, now I'm going to plug in negative 2. So if I plug in negative 2, that'll be a negative 32. And then after that, I'm going to get, let's see, it's going to be the opposite of what I got before. So negative 64 over 3. And then the other one is also going to be the opposite, because we have odd powers. The 5 and the 3 do not get rid of the negative. And so it's going to be plus negative 32 over 6. All right, then we're going to multiply everything by pi when we're finished. All right, so if I change all my signs here, that's what I get. And so I have 32 plus 32, so let's see, I have pi times 64. And then if I add this one and this one, that's going to be negative 128 over 3. And then I add the other two, it's going to be 64 over 6. Ha, that shouldn't be a 6, that should be a 5. There we go. Can't even read my own writing. All right. Okay. And then after that, I multiply everything by pi to get my final answer. So I'll use 15 for my common denominator, so I'd have to multiply this by 15. 64 times 15, 96. Sorry, not 96, 960. And then I have to multiply this by this by 5, 640. And multiply this by 3. Whoops. Yeah, 192. So then I get 512 over 15 pi. And I might be able to simplify that more, but I'm not going to. Just going to leave it like that. Now I'm going to plug it into my calculator just to check it. I have to plug this into my calculator and figure out what the decimal is for that. And then I'm also going to plug this into my calculator to see what it gives me. All right, and I got a matching answer here. I got 107.233.